Week 11 waiver wire is here, and instead of repeating the exact same show that we did last week, it's a lot of the same names, and we were on these guys, so hopefully you guys have already picked up a bunch of these guys. We're going to start with a little bit of news here. Hayden, Jakob, Sanderson, and two big pieces of news. We'll start with the more fantasy angle first. Joe Burrow's 21-day window off injured reserve was opened. Just reading between the lines here, he was kind of hinting at a return on Thanksgiving, which is good for us. We're going to be watching them versus the Ravens that game. That's going to be good to watch him. But I was not expecting him to return this early. What's your kind of feel for Joe Burrow's status? What's going on with his feet? And then, like, are we sure that the Bengals should be bringing him back?
I mean, look, I don't know anything about turf toe. So, who knows? It seems like the doctors were split. Like, there's some that were definitely predicting that he'd miss 3+ months, but others were more optimistic, and they seem to be correct on this one. So, yeah, I think the expectation to me is really like right now, I can see it because the Steelers are leading this division at 5-4. The Ravens are at 4-5. They're 3-6. They still have 2 games left against the Ravens. They've already won 1 game against the Steelers. They have 1 more after that. So they control their own destiny in this division. And I think that if they are able to get through these next couple of weeks with Flacco, where that's still true, then I think they should probably try to bring him back. I mean, why not? Do I think they're going to win the Super Bowl? No, their defense is still ridiculous. And like you look at what they've been doing the last few weeks with Flacco. I mean, how many more points could they have scored with Joe Burrow? I'm not saying that Joe Flacco is better than Joe Burrow, obviously, right. But like you look at the loss to the Jets, you look at the loss to the Bears, like I'm not sure that they win those games with Joe Burrow because they scored 80 points combined between the two of them anyways. So I think you may as well try for the division, get in the 4 seed and see what happens. And certainly that game against the Ravens is a must-have for them. If they lose the next couple of weeks with Flacco, then we'll see what they do. I wouldn't be as willing at that point if they don't have much of a realistic playoff chance.
Just like how players treat the situation, if they're not mathematically eliminated, then there's pressure to play. And obviously Joe Burrow wants to go play. Now, he might not be at full capacity, and at that point, the offense might not be nearly as good as it was when Joe Burrow was fully ready to go previously. So interesting nonetheless. He is only 60% rostered right now. So he kind of technically qualifies as somebody that we can talk about here. I would have fantasy quarterback 1 expectations. I mean, Joe Flacco's done that himself here. So the defense is going to be really bad the rest of the way. So Joe Burrow would be the best fantasy pickup to me if he is available, especially if you're dealing with a Jackson Dart concussion. We'll see about what happens the rest of the season. Some other kind of quarterbacks just kind of falling out into the quarterback 2 land where he will definitely be pretty interesting. So yeah, Thanksgiving is when we're going to see Joe Burrow. Next big piece of news was with Brian Daboll. Not all that surprising. Gets fired. You can't blow another lead there. You can't run quarterback power to that extent. Get your quarterback concussed. I think we all knew that Brian Daboll was not going to be very long here. And even if he was, not all that interesting as a head coach, in my opinion. I thought he got kind of his temper got the best out of him. We saw the blue tent. We saw the Wink Martindale firing, the who's calling plays. Remember that with, that still kind of lingers with the Giants. So a lot of weird things going on with Daboll. Just for your perspective, setting the floor with the Giants, how would you rate the Giants head coaching openings? And then would there be any fits that you'd like to see with Jackson Dart and Malik Nabers for 2026?
Well, I'll say first, this is one of the rare circumstances where I actually think the interim has a non-zero chance to keep the job. Mike Kafka's been calling plays this season. We think it's always a little bit cloak and dagger with Brian Daboll, but I think it's been confirmed he's been the primary play caller. And he gets this interesting situation where, I can't recall another example of an offensive head coach like Daboll is getting fired when a rookie quarterback is performing at a really high level. It's just that everything else was a disaster. But Kafka gets to own the development of Jackson Dart and the success of the offense despite all these injuries as well. And he doesn't have to own Shane Bowen as his defensive coordinator. He doesn't have to own baffling in-game management, such as declining a penalty to go for it from 4th and 1 foot. And then they end up losing the game by the exact difference between that touchdown and that field goal. He doesn't have to own just seemingly being kind of unpleasant whenever things are not going that well and yelling at people and entering tents, etc. So I think that if they finish strong, why would you like? It was sort of the battle to me with what they would do with Daboll. It's like, well, you don't want to get rid of the guy who your rookie quarterback is succeeding with, but can you really sustain all this other bullshit that comes along with it? Maybe Kafka gives them a chance to not have to choose. So I think he could keep the job if they perform well. Otherwise, like, I think it's the most attractive head coaching opening, unless the Bengals job maybe, but I would say probably even more so just because, like, who wants to deal with Bengals ownership? Like, that just seems like super aggravating. So probably the best coaching job of the cycle. They have a quarterback in place, Neighbors, superstar, high leverage position, Thomas, really great franchise cornerstone tackle. And they got studs on the defensive line. So building blocks are there.
Yeah, this is, I think, a really good call with Mike Kafka. He was brought in with Joe Schoen. He's been with the team since 2022. Before that, he was the Chiefs quarterbacks coach. So he can claim that he developed Patrick Mahomes. And I think that's what he's going to be telling ownership here. And then obviously there's like some scramble mobility stuff that's a little bit parallel between Dart and an early version of Patrick Mahomes, or maybe a college version of Patrick Mahomes. So I can definitely see that. Also, John Mara, very patient, and they're going to probably extend Joe Schoen. So maybe what they say is, hey, just Daboll was not for us, and we actually like Kafka in control. So I think that would be interesting. Lane Kiffin would be the most interesting. We'll see. That's probably too far-fetched.
Yeah.
But that would be
the most fun. I don't even know if it would be a good idea or a bad idea. It would just be a blast to have Lane Kiffin in the NFL. I support that.
Yeah.
As for Daboll, he's going to be the 2026 offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. I think Joe Brady will coach the Bengals or LSU next season. And then we get Daboll back in Buffalo.
Yep. I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay. To the waiver wire here. Let's go through this in order. You're wearing a Colts jersey. No, it is not an Alec Pierce jersey, but that one's probably being shipped over right now. Correct. So this month, he's a wide receiver 15 on wide receiver 18 usage. He is actually good. No caveats. Like, not good for a wide receiver. Good. Not good as a downfield threat. No, just damn good at football in breakers. Everyone saw the touchdown the week before. It was outbreakers. What if he's just really damn good at football? That's kind of where I'm at with Alec Pierce. So not only is he somebody that he should have already been added. We've talked about him before. But he should just be straight up started probably for the rest of the season. So you're the Colts guy here. Make the final case for Alec Pierce, because this better be the last week where he's under 50% rostered.
I mean, he is literally top 10 in the NFL in yards per game. He's missed 2 games. The only reason why I think people aren't realizing how much he's broken out is because he scored his first touchdown this week. But like, for a guy who has a 16 ADOT and a 20% target share over the last month, like, this is a guy that should be scoring touchdowns, scoring a lot of touchdowns. There was a play in the game that I tweeted out where they lined up in 12 personnel with Doolin, which is like their we're running kind of set. And then they occasionally tendency break out of that, which they did here. And they run dagger with Doolin on the clear. And they chose Pierce to be the guy doing the backside in. You know, that didn't need to be the case. They could have put Pittman out there and did that. They wanted it to be Alec Pierce. That's like treating him as though he's their number 1 receiver. I don't really think the Colts have a number 1 wide receiver. They have like a bunch of guys who they throw to based on the situation and the matchup. And in a given week, Pierce can be the number 1. But they treated him like that in a big way. And another reason why he's always going to play in those formations is go watch the Jonathan Taylor 83-yard run. I mean, it's one of the best runs you'll ever see. But then watch Alec Pierce blocking 75 yards down the field like an absolute baller. He has like made himself so much money this season. He's probably going to get extended at like, 3 years, 65 million, something like that. It's pretty wild. If you read Stephen Holder's column today, who's the top reporter for the Colts, he had mentioned that coming into the season, their view was the same as what my view was, which was we have the succession plan. It's AD Mitchell next year. We're going to let Pierce walk. We're going to take our comp pick, and I hope he gets paid by someone else. And they've completely changed course. They traded AD Mitchell, of course. They don't plan to replace him in the draft. Their plan is to re-sign Alec Pierce.
I didn't even know which Doolin play you were going to talk about, because they threw Doolin like a screen, and Alec Pierce on that one blocked a guy into the dirt, and Doolin almost scored a touchdown on that one as well. So there was multiple blocking plays on top of all the stuff he's adding there. He's just awesome. Just want to also note, when we get an actually fast wide receiver, that's the free money in fantasy football. There's very little free money out there, but Ladd McConkey's, your Alec Pierce and stuff, if the white guys are flying down the field, make sure to attack those guys, because
it's like May and Dart. No one would believe it. They were mobile.
Exactly. The sneaky athletes are the cheat code.
They should have asked Trump about this at the Washington.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been more interesting. Next guy that we talked about the previous week, and I will take this one as a win for us, Parker Washington. So the last 3 games here, 17, 12.5, 14.5 expected points. And he actually looked pretty good on film the last couple weeks too. So I saw him kind of shake Derek Stingley in a cover 1 spot where he just in, out, back across his face for a catch, then had the touchdown at the catch point. So Parker Washington, that's 3 straight weeks where the usage is very strong for him. So what should we expect for him rest of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I, of course, did not watch this game quite as closely as the Colts game, but everything that I've seen from Parker this year suggests he's their, I don't know if I'd say, I'm not going to say he's their best receiver, but he's their most reliable receiver this season in terms of, what he's doing pre-snap, what he's doing in the blocking scheme, and then most of all, the best chance, and he's had drop issues too, but in terms of reliable to be where he's supposed to be and try at the catch point, he does that. So I think Parker, they've come out and said, I think subsequent to our last episode, they said, we traded for Jakob. We're going to play him on the outside. We're going to keep Parker in the slot primarily. They'll rotate in and out. But as long as Parker is primarily playing in that F role, which I think he will be for at least until Travis Hunter returns, he's going to be a startable player in fantasy. That role's always had a lot of value in the Liam Cohen offense, and that's kind of what Trevor wants to throw. So, yeah, I think he's in every week wide receiver 3, at least for the next few weeks.
I would not be surprised if he's just better than Jakobi Meyers straight up at this point. And
especially with the experience in the offense.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, they didn't really use Jakobi Meyers all that quick. One of his catches was just a busted coverage, and he played about half of the routes out there where Parker Washington was a full-time player. So he's going to be moved into the slot, but he's also playing in 2 wide receiver sets, 1 wide receiver sets. And for now, he's competing. The other wide receiver, it's Tim Patrick, who never gets the football. And the tight ends.
Trammell, I believe, is getting some run.
Yeah, exactly. It's these guys where I have no idea where Austin Trammell even went to college, barely even seen his name on the spreadsheets before. So, we're in a good spot with Parker Washington. Another kind of breakout candidate, I think emerging as an every week wide receiver 3 for the time being, is Tez Johnson, wide receiver 14 on wide receiver 28 usage this month. There has not been a good Chris Godwin report in a very long time, and it sounds like we're weeks away from that. So Tez Johnson's been a full-time player, scores 2 touchdowns here, both kind of in scramble drill situations. So what should be the expectations for let's say the next couple weeks until Chris Godwin gets back?
I don't know that Chris Godwin's getting back.
And that's a fair response.
I would not take that as a given. I mean, even the Buck Ewing stuff has been really cloudy. I would say I still expect him to be back at some point, just because he's not the one who's coming off of this calamitous offseason surgery that's had seemingly multiple setbacks. But I don't know that Chris Godwin's coming back. And if he does come back this year, I have no idea what version of Chris Godwin we're getting. He seems like he's been through absolute hell in this recovery from this ankle injury. So I'm just kind of pretending he's not part of the picture. And I think it's just the easiest way to view this offense. Tez, hilariously, he's 5'6", but apparently he's just a red zone demon now on this team. I don't know that he is that great, but you have a team that really has no choice but to pass at a high clip because their primary running back is Rachaad White, who stinks between the tackles. And they have Emeka Egbuka, who's awesome, and they don't have much off of that. I mean, they're getting back to force feeding Cade Otton 9-10 targets a game. So I think Tez is going to have spike week upside every single week. We didn't really see it this week, but we know he can win downfield as well. And so I think, you're going to have a fun piece of a fun offense who's going to be, I think, more volatile than Parker Washington and is just not as good of a player nearly as Alec Pierce. So he'd be a solid 3rd of that list, but definitely a guy you can put into lineups.
I almost forgot that Jalen McMillan existed. Looked at it. There was a report from November 6th where Bowles said that he's still in the brace. He's getting better, but he's still in the brace. And he broke his neck. So I would say same thing with Chris Godwin. If either one of these guys comes back, that would just be a plus. I'm assuming that for a while it's just going to be Tez Johnson. And
what number is McMillan going to wear? Tez has been in his number all year.
Yeah, interesting. Who knows? Maybe they forgot about
McMillan must have changed numbers, but I think that's why I didn't even think of him existing because I've seen Tez in 15 all year.
Well, I'll tell you who does exist. Cade Otton. Over the last couple years, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin have been in and out of the lineup. If you remove all the snaps where both of them are out of there, Cade Otton's got a 20% targets per route, and that's pretty much what we saw this last week. So it was a season high in usage at the 14 expected points that was like perfect game script, perfect matchup for him. He still doesn't do a lot after the catch, but he can sit there and kind of do like a miniature version of Jake Ferguson. So we lost a couple tight ends, potentially Dalton Kincaid's week to week. Aronde Gadsden, we got like relatively good news from him, but dealing with some type of thigh bruise. So Cade Otton, him versus like Juwan Johnson, for example, who would you rather have for the next couple weeks?
I think for the next couple of weeks, I'd rather have Cotton. Like you said, he is the most inconvenient truth to the rule that there's no such thing as vacated targets. He's like the one guy who just like massively is a different player when everybody else is out. I would rather be attached to Baker than Tyler Shuck. So I think they both have kind of a similar role in the context of the offense, but for short term, at least unless Chris Godwin comes back, give me Cotton.
Yep. And Juwan Johnson, he obviously had a huge day in the box score. Did check both of those like explosive plays, more of like the broken play, busted coverage variety than like schemed up touches or something. So I don't really want to chase that, even though I was pretty impressed with Tyler Shuck last week. Yeah,
Shuck looked better than I would have possibly imagined based on his profile last week. Not a good pass defense in Carolina, but he looked pretty solid. And that's, as long as you can get baseline competence, like I think you're fine, because they're going to run plays like they have the entire year. They're going to trail more often than not, and that's going to drive pass volume. And without Rashid Shaheed, there's only 2 target earners on the team. Devon Vele ran literally a 100% route rate this week, and like he's just not a real player. So
it's unbelievable.
It's going to be it's going to be like only Olave and Juwan are earning targets, because like even Alvin Kamara is a total dust ball at this point. So it's Olave and it's Johnson. Like he's going to be a totally viable low end tight end one rest of the season.
Okay, moving on to some running backs. There was not like that many crazy running back injuries. The big one that we're still waiting for is J.K. Dobbins. R.J. Harvey is like an 80% rostered, so he's not a waiver wire guy, but just wanted a kind of state of the union on R.J. Harvey, the prospect, where he fits in with just the Broncos. Is there somebody else that can possibly threaten him? And then just the status for the next couple of weeks, assuming Dobbins is going to have to miss.
Yeah, so I wrote about this spot on Saturday, since the injury had already happened. I'm definitely assuming Dobbins is going to miss. I'm assuming he's missing multiple weeks. I know he played through it, but like we're dealing with probably a high ankle or midfoot sprain. We just mentioned Bucky Irving, who's going on like his 7th week out despite catching a 75-yard touchdown on this injury. So that's not, he could have kept playing. And he still might be seriously injured. He's raging online about hip drop tackles, so I think
he really is. For a while. That's your big key. By the way, Bucky Irving had one of the craziest posts after his injury that you'll ever see.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something about what is the social post reaction to injuries? Maybe that needs to be the next coach speak index.
He also got a second opinion. No one gets a second opinion if the first opinion is you'll be fine next week.
Yes.
So in terms of how they've used their backfield, I mean, they've used it, in my opinion, suboptimally, which is that they just broadcast what they want to do on every play based on the personnel package. And I think it's really limiting to their offense as a whole. Every time they want to do their run-based offense, they use J.K. Dobbins. It's gotten to the point he had 6 routes total last week, despite being their very clear RB1. So basically, if he's on the field, you just know it's a run call. They haven't married their run game to their passing game whatsoever. It's just they have like a set of plays where they run the ball with Dobbins, and then they have everything else. And I just think it's bizarre, and I think it's unnecessary. But anyways, that's what they've been doing. In terms of their shotgun game, where they pass the ball, that's where you get R.J. Harvey. He gets a few carries. It's mostly, though, even though he doesn't play that often, he's had a fantasy viable role for the last month with some spike week upside because he gets all the fun plays. They throw him a lot of screens. They even scheme him up on some downfield stuff. He got that sweet wheel route touchdown for the game winner against the Houston Texans. And, you're thinking about, okay, how can we add on more? Who's going to get the rest of this role? Look at who is on the Denver Broncos. Sean Payton is outdoing himself with the bits. It is Tyler Bidet, who shouldn't play at all, but they insist on playing him on third down situations all year. We also have Jaleel McLaughlin, who's mostly been a healthy scratch, but he's still on the active roster. And then you look at the practice squad, which I did. I was like, oh, they probably have some bigger back they'll bring up to get like half of the Dobbins carries. No. Their only practice squad running back is Deuce fucking Vaughn.
Unbelievable. I was waiting for the shoe to drop. You could not have maybe guessed that. Deuce Vaughn. How?
It is Deuce Vaughn. So the only running backs that they have available on their practice squad or active roster right now, without Dobbins, is R.J. Harvey, Jaleel McLaughlin, Tyler Bidet, and Deuce Vaughn. So like next to these dudes, R.J. Harvey looks like a power back. So yeah, I do expect he's going to get the vast majority of the Dobbins stuff. If anything, this is a team that should be running the ball more, not less. Their quarterback is playing terribly this year. So I think R.J. Harvey has a pretty good chance of being like 10 to 12 to 15 carries, splitting some probably with Jaleel, and then he'll still lose the third down work to Bidet, but I bet they're still going to use it for the fun stuff. So he could have a really fun fantasy role. I honestly think he'd be a low-end RB1 for any time J.K. Dobbins misses.
Yeah, it's really impressive that R.J. Harvey has like almost a 12% target share on the season despite being a part-time player. So like he was like really emerging as the joker at least. And yeah, like you said, the competition for carries behind him. I think they'll probably get Jaleel McLaughlin in there and like probably for, 7 carries per game, something like that. But Dobbins on a 1-year deal. And they drafted R.J. Harvey in the second round. So like they need to host like a tryout for R.J. Harvey. Like, can you be our version of Alvin Kamara, or are you going to be kind of pigeonholed in this like joker role? So I think it's a good time for them to test the boundaries here. So yeah, he's already been picked up. I do think that he's at least an upside RB2 right now.
Yeah, and I'll note quick on Harvey as a runner. I mean, we haven't seen much of him as a runner, but from what we have, I think it's been a mixed bag. Yeah. Like his vision has been iffy. His decision-making has been iffy. But when he actually makes the right decisions, I think you really see the athletic upsides. Like he's made some really impressive cuts. You see a ton of the juice inside. So to me, I get why they're like, well, Dobbins is playing great, so why do we have to live with the hits and misses? But if you compare him versus like what I think are pretty non-viable runners, like, yeah, he's going to have more negative plays than J.K. Dobbins. He's also going to create some home runs. And I think he's going to come out being a pretty fine running back in the wash overall.
Yep, I see it the same way. That's kind of how he played in college as well. So not overly surprising, but yeah, you got to take the wins with the losses with them. You got to get them on the field. Two other options, Tyler Allgeier, Brian Robinson. I've just like seen these guys play good football in their roles. Tyler Allgeier pops up with the 2 touchdowns. We've seen him, so I think he's pretty straightforward. But just want to quickly mention Brian Robinson. He's coming in for like a drive per game or so, and I think he looks pretty good. Like maybe it's just because CMC is really slow, or maybe because Brian Robinson's healthier this year than it was last year, not as utilized. But he looks like pretty quick for a big guy. So I just wanted to mention Brian Robinson, Tyler Allgeier, they both play behind the guys that touch the ball the most. So love both of those guys as pickups.
I think they should use Brian Robinson more. Christian McCaffrey has been awesome this year, obviously in fantasy and as a receiver. Still not giving them much as a runner. So I would use B-Rob even more. It's very fun to have a Falcons Island game. Everybody remembers simultaneously that Tyler Allgeier is the Falcons goal line back. And he's really darn good at it. Yeah, if Bijan were to miss time, like if every starting running back in the NFL were to get injured simultaneously, Tyler Allgeier would be potentially the number 1 most valuable handcuff. It'd be him or Corum, but I think I'd go with Allgeier.
Yeah, he's not even close to 50%. There's really no point to have like your 6th wide receiver on a team if your quarterback 1's already had his bye and you have a quarterback 2. Like those type of guys I would be dumping for players like Tyler Allgeier because they're like truly 1 play away from like winning your league. So at this point in the season, we've seen most of the guys that are actually going to break out, and there's now a higher chance that Tyler Allgeier, just with an injury, is the breakout candidate versus like some other guy. So both those guys good options.
One injury, we would legitimately be ranking Allgeier and Corum like the RB6 going into the week. Like
absolutely. Yeah. Quickly, Marcus Mariota, 18.7 fantasy points last week. Jaden Daniels, I don't think he's going to return for a long while. Anything that we should kind of take note of from Marcus Mariota is just kind of floating in like quarterback 2 upside land. Yeah,
he's like consistently playable, but not the priority. But like, if you have bye weeks, if you have whatever, it's totally playable.
We'll pivot over to the drop list real quick. Throwing out some running backs here. Nick Chubb basically lost his job, and even the job that he had, you really couldn't play him in fantasy. So Woody Marks played most of the snaps there. I think Nick Chubb is somebody that we could be moving on from. Same thing for Chuba Hubbard. He lost his job to Rico Dowdle. He's not going to have that back, even if he crawled back into a 50-50 timeshare. Not on this Panthers team, doesn't really matter. Maybe a spicier one, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. He's just been in a role where he needs leads, and I don't think that the Commanders are going to be winning too many games. And then all of a sudden, like Chris Rodriguez is mixing up. So what do you think happened with Bill Krosky-Merritt? Because he seems like he's playing decent football. It's just kind of his entire environment around him just went into chaos.
Yeah, I mean, they wanted to get Chris Rodriguez involved this week. I guess he's played fine too. I think people have overhated on Bill the player just because he became a meme, I guess. If you look at his numbers over the whole season, they're quite strong. It's tailed off in recent weeks, but that's just the variance that happens if you're getting like 7 carries in a given game. Like, if you don't break one for a 20-yard chunk, your numbers are going to look like crap. The real issue is, this team is just crumbling into the abyss. And the passing down back is Jeremy McNichols. So the only way that any of these running backs have legitimate fantasy value is if they are getting the entirety of the early down role and the team has at least a half a chance of winning every week. I mean, they've now gotten completely blown to pieces for 4 straight weeks. There is no running back in the NFL who you would give that role to with this Washington defense where they lose by 3 touchdowns every week and they're going to be a consistent fantasy starter. Now that he's also, kind of, I think, just getting blamed for bad results. And Chris Rodriguez is working in. I'll note Rodriguez got hurt in this game too, so maybe it's just back to all Bill on early downs next week. And they do get the Dolphins, which is like a game they might actually be able to stay in. So if C-Rod misses, I think you can keep JCM one more week for the Dolphins matchup. But if C-Rod's back and it's a 3-way split on this crappy team, then I don't need to roster any Washington Commanders running back.
All right, that was all well said. I'm taking Bill off the drop list for now, but he might be on here this next week. And if you're no Shall, you can move on. Terry McLaurin, same thing. Sure. There's just not enough room in this offense. Big one though here, Minnesota Vikings went back, watched all of the JJ McCarthy reps. Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison are not on the drop list.
Did you watch the JJ reps or did you watch the 9 reps?
Well, it's hard to distinguish between them because I haven't seen either one of them pop up where I was like really paying attention to the name on the jersey because I'm distracted by the ball going out of bounds way too often. So,
well, that must have been JJ. 9 wouldn't do that.
Yeah, who knows? I'm skeptical.
Are they going to soft bench JJ for 9 at some point?
Well, they need to do something over there. The two guys, well, JJ McCarthy himself, I think is droppable. Jordan Mason and TJ Hawkinson. TJ Hawkinson, we haven't seen anything in the box score in a long time, and he's way down the target list, and he has not looked the same since the injury, in my opinion. Jordan Mason, it's been all Aaron Jones recently. Is there any reason why we need to keep Jordan Mason on there? Like Jordan Mason versus Tyler Allgeier and Brian Robinson. I think like Jordan Mason has a better chance of like being the RB 26 in a week. But like, what does that get you at this point?
Yeah, Mason doesn't have a really meaningful role. Like, I mean, if you're starting Mason versus Blake Corum on a weekly basis, like you might just prefer to start Blake Corum.
I'm ranking Corum ahead of Mason.
Yeah. So what's the point? Yeah, I thought it might have been a 1-week blip, but now it's 2 weeks. It's clearly a pattern. They clearly have fallen out of love with Jordan Mason. They're back in on Aaron Jones. Maybe it's just as simple as they wanted to do a 50-50 split to keep Jones fresh. Then he missed half the season, and they're like, well, you're fresh.
There's your 50.
So,
there's your 50.
yeah. So that could be it. But yeah, Jones looks way better right now. Looks spry. So I think they'll keep feeding him. And Mason basically should be treated like a handcuff, and he's not anywhere near the top 10 in handcuff value because he doesn't catch passes. Completely
agree there. Any other takes you need to get off your chest before we wind down here?
No, I'm going to enjoy this restful bye week. And then I'm 14 days of just thinking about Daniel Jones having hot answers for Steve Spagnuolo blitzes. That's all I'm going to be working on. I'll just be sending Steichen memos of Spags tape being like, hey, don't run 4 verts on this one. Like, let's have someone available.
Well, maybe if you email the ownership, they actually might be reading them. They seem to be
that's
on everything right now. So maybe that's
exactly
there. Yeah. All right, go support Jakob on Thinking About Thinking. Lots of fun stuff over there. He's also participating with The Athletic, doing some cool stuff. Anything else I'm missing?
I mean, every Tuesday we do our Dynasty show over on Fantasy Points, and of course we do the Shipcast, partnering with Underdog over on Sunday. We're two weeks in a row of hitting on pick'ems now. We almost did a full sweep this week. We were 0.15 from Deebo Samuel hitting for a full sweep. But anyways, check us out on Sundays. Check us out wherever else. And I'll see you back here next week.
Cool. Josh and I'll be back for stats. Whoa, 3, 2, 1. We'll end it on a good note here. 3, 2, 1. Josh and I'll be back stats versus film tomorrow on Tuesday, and we'll go through all these teams and more thoughts on Brian Daboll, of course. So until then, peace.